1, 2, 3. Harold and Brad, Windy City filmmakers. Harold and Brad, Windy City filmmakers. Harold and Brad. Knocking it out, man. We'll see. What's going on, y'all? This is Bradford S. Stevens and
Harold Dennis.
We in the house. This is the debut, the pilot episode for our podcast, Harold and Brad, Windy City filmmakers, and it's just about that filmmaking, about filmmakers from Chicago who are doing other stuff here and other places as well. So, gonna kick things off by talking a little bit about ourselves. So, we've been knowing each other for a minute, right?
Yeah, we've been knowing each other for over a couple decades, and we've been steadily doing our thing and finding time to work together.
No doubt. So we'll start with HD. HD, Harold Dennis, hardest working actor in Chicago. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Naples, Florida, and was here in Chicago at the age of 1. So I've been here pretty much my whole life, and yeah, that's where I was from. But I grew up here on the south side of Chicago, moved around a lot, but it was always the south side of Chicago and Mississippi and different places.
Mississippi, yeah. No doubt. Okay, so what's some of the first things that got you into acting? Because we're talking about acting, filmmaking, whole 9 yards. What really drew you to being an actor?
Well, let's start at the very beginning. When I was in second grade, I was invited to be in the Thanksgiving play on stage with my little suit on. I got on stage and I remember sitting there on stage and forgot my lines. And I thought to myself, this isn't for me. And that was that.
Right.
And then later, my father has a sister, Marion Roll, and she was doing plays off Broadway and overseas in Edinburgh, London, all over the place. A one-woman show called Desiree. And so I used to hear about that later. And, you know, growing up here on the south side of Chicago, I didn't know any of the people that I saw on TV and in the movies. So that was impossible. But hearing about her, then later, so it stayed in the back of my mind. Later, after high school, I had a high school band teacher named John Watson Sr. He popped up in movies. You know, he's from the South Side, lived in Chicago. He passed in 2006. And so he ended up in The Fugitive, Groundhog Day, Hoodlum, Soul Food, the movie. Nice. If anybody remembers Soul Food, the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Remembers Soul Food. He was the old guy that came out with the money at the end of the movie. He was Uncle Pete. He used to stay up in the room. And that was my high school band teacher. And he had lines with Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. And so that blew my mind. I was like, Mr. Watson is in Chicago. He's not on the coast. He doesn't live in L.A. or New York.
Right.
How's he in these Hollywood movies? And so when I saw that, I was like, this isn't impossible. And so I was immediately interested in learning more and doing it myself. So I was like, if Mr. Watson is doing it, I can do it too. And so I started doing extra work in 1997. I was hearing this on B96, this commercial saying, be an extra in the movies, be an extra in the movies, be an extra in the movies. I heard it so much that finally I wrote the number down and applied. And I sent my Polaroid picture back. This was actually 1997, around this time.
No doubt.
When I was applying.
Yeah.
And so I sent it in, and finally they called me. And I remember I was an extra on this show that came on CBS called Early Edition.
Oh, yeah, I remember Early Edition, yeah.
And I was featured out the gate where they put the camera in my face and down the side and way down the other side. And the shot they used, and before that, I called all of my family all over the country. He says, I'm going to be on TV. Tune in. I'm going to be on TV. And so everybody's watching. I'm watching. And then they used that shot way down on the other end. And so they had half my face for that amount of time. And I remember saying to myself, this is some bullshit. and then my sister that was in California at the time, she called me and says, I saw you. I was like, so I was talking to my buddy Kenny. I was talking to Kenny.
Right.
And I says, I want to do more. I want to do more. And he says, well, why don't you take an acting class? I was like, that's a good idea. Where?
Right.
And he says, well, me and Carl, we had taken classes over at ETA and studied with Harold Okoro Johnson.
ETA, great place, man.
Yeah, he's one of my mentors.
Yeah.
And Mr. Watson was one of my mentors. That's why when I saw him doing it, I was like, oh, this is a possible thing. Because I was in the band back in high school with Mr. Watson. I played trumpet all 4 years. He was my teacher for 3 of those years, and because he came my sophomore year, and I was the lead trumpet. All the other trumpet players with talent graduated, and so that was me standing along with the other guys. And Mr. Watson had us audition for the lead chair, and I got it. And then later he says, my junior year, he says, why don't you go apply for the all-city concert band? I says, you think I can make that? He says, yeah, you can make it go. And I went and made the all-city concert band when we played every Saturday, practice every Saturday. And my senior year, he says, go out for the all-city jazz band. I'm like, get out of here. He says, you'll make it. I went down there and made the all-city jazz band. And Mr. Watson used to get us paid doing summer cedar jobs, playing our instruments. And I was like, wow, we're getting paid to play instruments over at Chicago State. It was real cool back then.
Right.
And so he was a mentor. He used to tell us, practice, 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 take care of your family, all types of things. And so getting back to Okoro, I took that class over at ETA August of 1998. And
You're good, man. You be remembering dates, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know that you was with them and you took the class the year before, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so I sat there in that first class with Okoro, and it was I caught the class just in time too. It was August, and they had one class already that I'd missed. And I went in to sit in on the next class to see if I liked it. And I sat there after that class was over, and I had the little $300 in my pocket to pay for the class.
No doubt.
Which ran for a school year from August to April, May. After that first class, I was like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
That's how much Okoro affected me.
Yeah.
And so.
Rest in peace, Okoro.
Rest in peace. And so a couple weeks in, Okoro said to the class, he was looking at one guy. He wasn't looking at me. He looked at this guy and says, there are no men in the advanced class.
Right.
Our class beginning was on Tuesday nights. The advanced class was Wednesday night. And so the guy didn't say anything and we didn't either. So the following week, Okoro looked at the same guy again and says, there are no men in the advanced class and we need men in the advanced class. And the guy looked at him and raised his hand and said to Okoro, I don't have another $300. And Okoro said, don't worry about that. I was like, I'm there. I'm there. I got excited. I was like, I can take 2 classes.
Right.
And so I did. That's how I got started, taking those 2 classes. And I was in heaven, Tuesday and Wednesday nights, heaven. And then shortly after that, in January, myself and Kenny was in the basement talking about the acting, and I was telling him I want to do more, and he was telling me, yeah, we should do something. And he'll say that I said, and I'll say that he said, let's get some actors that we know from around town together and meet up and just hone our craft.
No doubt, right.
And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so at that point, he called you, Marissa and Sharon and whoever else, Tracy.
Yeah, Malik.
Malik came with me, though.
Okay, great.
Malik was in the acting class with me. So I went to ETA to my classes, and I invited Malik, Charles, Sharon.
Okay.
June.
Yeah.
Kim Barlow. Yep. And Lorraine.
Nice.
All of those people came from the class.
Right.
Because I had so much excitement that they just came. And so we, including Bradley here, Bradford.
Yeah.
We met every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. starting February for a whole year.
Right.
And then after that, I left the troupe because it got into politics and blah, 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 blah. But we did some great things. We met in the basement. We did mirror exercises, and we had so much fun. We did a show over at the University of Chicago.
It was great, man, because
Blue Gargoyle.
Yeah, Blue Gargoyle. We wrote. direct their own material. So it was amazing, man. It was really, really great experience, man.
Yeah. You wrote some nice pieces that one of them we're going to film, aren't we?
We're going to shoot this summer, ideally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so that was the acting troupe. And so I jumped in with both hands and both feet. And that was February of 98 when that started. And then by June, I had met from the blues play that was in the acting troupe that passed away.
Connie?
Connie.
Yeah.
Connie was in the acting troupe. She came from ETA too.
Right.
Connie introduced me to Fernando.
Nice.
Which I saw last night, by the way.
Right.
And we met at myself and Fernando met at a McDonald's because he had a play called I Was There When the Blues Was Red Hot. And he offered me the lead role. And so we rehearsed over at the Palm Tavern. That was the former Palm Tavern over here. It's on 47th and King.
Is that place still there? Or is it?
No, they tore it down a bunch of years ago.
Right.
And that was a famous place. The Palm Tavern was the watering hole for the entertainers that used to come to town to perform at the Regal Theater here on 47th Street. And Mama Jerry Oliver, she had owned the place since 1951.
Yeah.
And so she was still around in 98 there. The place was run down by then. But we went up with the play. I Was There When the Blues Was Red Hot. October, I believe it was 2nd and 3rd of 1998.
Right.
And we rehearsed all summer and we was just going to do this play for those 2 nights. And we ended up doing the show and it was so much fun. We was like, let's just keep running it, keep running it.
It ran for a minute, man.
It ran for a minute. Yeah. I did 171 shows.
My goodness.
Every Friday and Saturday night. It was free to get in and $10 to get out.
Yeah.
I was there when the blues was red hot. And so it was nice. So the acting troupe, the ETA, and the play, I was getting all of the learning and the stage experience that I could get for a beginner, and I was in heaven.
Right. And then, to jump ahead a little bit, you started taking classes at Toronto Studios, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then, and I love this story, man. You could tell it, but I love the story about how you did not have money for classes, and so you offered to clean up around the studio. And then eventually he said yes, and you've been there since taking classes, getting better, developing the craft. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's about. So June 2000, I left town. I was gone for 2 years, and I came back June of 2002, and I was living in Louisville, Atlanta, Mississippi. But anyway, to make a long story short, at one point when I was in Louisville in 2001, I did a Raisin in the Sun at Actors Theater in the Black Box up there. I played Joseph Assegai, and that was the first time I got to develop the language.
Right.
And it was so much fun. I think I did 8 performances and a couple other plays and a couple other things. But while I was down there, the internet was brand new, and I'm surfing the web looking for acting classes and lessons in Louisville. And I came across Ted Sarantos somehow. And he calls me up while I'm in Louisville. And he had this voice, "Hi, you're interested in acting classes?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." He says, "Well, when would you like to come in?" "Well, when are the classes?" Blah, 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 blah. I says, "Okay, I could try to come in." And then I discovered that he was in Chicago. I was like, "Well, I'm living in Louisville." And I had no intentions on coming back to Chicago.
Right.
And he says, "Well, whenever you're in Chicago, look me up." And that was in 2001. So when I made my way back in June 2002, somehow later on that year, I found some information. And I was like, that's that guy I talked to almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I went and sat in on his class sometime in early 03. And I remember sitting there in that evening class, watching him work with the actor. So what he did was he videotaped the actors.
Yeah.
He'd put the camera on them, and then he'd tell them, okay, nose to the camera, smile in the eye, tilt your chin down. Okay, talk to the mic, deep breath, hold it. And when you're ready, action. And I was like, I need that.
No doubt. Yeah.
That's the thought that came to my mind. I need that. And so after that, he asked me and a couple other people that were sitting there, "Well, you guys are interested in taking classes?" And one thing I did learn from Okoro is he says, "Okay, don't worry about that for the second class." And I was like, "You can take classes for free." sometimes.
Right.
And so when Ted says, you guys interested in the classes, this was this was early 03. I don't think it was spring yet. And I says, yeah, I want to take classes with you. But unfortunately, I just got back to town and don't have a job, can't afford you right now. But I can help you clean up around here.
No doubt.
No doubt. It was an old building,
Right.
and I could see where he could use help. And he says, well, I don't need that. And I says, okay. And I left. And so at that time, I just got back to town. I was sleeping on Tracy's couch, Tracy Jones, who was a member of the acting troupe.
Yeah.
And one of my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi. So I slept on this couch for a year. And then I had moved, and then I went and slept on another noob's couch for a year, fraternity.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this different place, and I didn't have a cell phone back then, but somehow 10 months later, Ted Sarantos calls me over to this other guy's house, Darnell. And the first thing I got on the phone, I says, hey, how did you get this number?
Right.
You're finding me? And so what I deducted was he called Tracy, and Tracy gave him the number to where I'm at over here. And, let me say this before that. So I'm back with Tracy, and the first thing I do is Tracy, and James Alfred was in the acting troupe too.
Real quick, rest in peace, Tracy, too.
Rest in
brother.
peace, Tracy. Yeah. A lot of people passed.
I know, man. Yeah.
So we have to do what we're doing now.
No doubt.
Get it done.
Yeah.
So getting back to while I was over Tracy's when I first got back to town, Tracy took me to this audition for Dark.
Nice.
And I didn't get a call back. And then James took me to that same audition for Dark.
Right.
Both of them was an actor troupe. And so I remember at the second audition, I misinterpreted a line. And the guy that was sitting there reading with me, he bust up laughing. So I bust up laughing. I didn't realize I misinterpreted the line. I just stayed in character, kept laughing, and I got cast for the role.
Nice. Good stuff.
In Dark. And so I shot that. And so
Right.
that was exciting coming back to town that in June. By November's filming, I was like, oh, this is great. Let's keep it going. And so getting back to Ted Sarantos, I can help you clean up around here. I don't need that. 10 months later, he finds me. How'd you get this number? And then, anyway, he invited me to a student showcase.
Yeah.
This was August or September. No, this was around November of 2003. And he invited me to a student showcase. And I was like, I'm that same guy over the phone. I'm that same guy that says, I'll help you clean up around there. He says, okay, just come on to the student showcase. And so I remember I was living in Calumet City, and I had my kids for that weekend, and I was on the bus, and it was raining. And so the buses run once an hour out there in Calumet City. So he had two student showcases, so we was going to make the first one. So we went up to the bus stop with the umbrellas and waited on that bus, and somehow it just never came. I was like, well, we must have missed that bus. So we went back home, so we was going to miss the first showcase. And then we walked back out there and caught the second bus, Pace bus, to the next Pace bus, to the red line, to the brown line, to Sarantos.
Yeah.
And we sat there, and I was tired, pretty much super tired, but I watched the shooting showcase. And then after it was all over, me and the kids standing there, they're about 9, 10, something like that.
Right.
And he says, well, how'd you like the show? I says, I loved it. Maybe something like that. And I says, I'm that same guy that says, I'll help you clean up around here. These are my kids. They're good kids. And he's talking to him, blah, blah, blah. And I says, I really want to train with you. Because like I said, I need this. That's what I said to myself those so many months ago. And so he says, I'll think about it. And so we went home. A week later, I get an email saying immediate scholarship. And then I called him up and says, well, I can't start right now because I'm in 5 community plays, and then I'll be in California for Christmas, blah, blah. He says, come back in the new year and we'll get started. So I believe it was January 4th, that first Wednesday in January of 2004, might have been the 7th. That first Wednesday, I showed up for his class, took the class, and I took my VHS tape because what he does is he records the actors. Right. You get up there and do your thing, and you take your lesson, and he records you. Then you take your tape and you sit down, and someone else gives him the tape, he records them. And he says, take that tape home you take it home and watch it a minimum of 3 times. Because when you look at yourself the first time, being new, it's like, ugh, can't look at it. Second time you look at it like, oh, okay. Yeah. Third time you look at it like, okay, I see what he was teaching. So, that's the lesson. And I started the class the first Wednesday in January 2004, and this is 2016 March, and I'm still with him. I'll be in every Wednesday. I'll be in class this Wednesday with Ted Saranto.
Nice.
I helped him clean up, mopping, sweeping, wiping the toilets, taking out the garbage, doing a little editing, hanging up headshots, passing out stuff, whatever I could do. He says 3 hours of class, 3 hours of work. So now, sometime for the past few years now, I'll make sure I mop, take out the garbage, because he's moved 3 times since I've been with him. He's out in Oak Park, Illinois now in a smaller space. Right. So it's not much that he really needs. And, sometimes he says, I'll see you next week. I don't need you to do nothing, so and the things that I've gotten from him are super.
Yeah.
And it's been great. And also back in 2010, it was the actor in film meetup. I was at the Christmas party, right?
Yeah.
And this actress handed me this flyer so I sat over the years. I've sat in on different classes and different workshops, and I remember going to Act One, watching the Meisner workshops.
Meisner, yeah.
Somebody mentioned Meisner, and I wanted to see what it was, so I used to go sit in and watch those. So it's 2010 Christmas. This actor handed me this 5-hour free workshop for actor at Meisner at Green Shirt Studio, and I was like, okay. 5 hours of hands-on, not just watching. I'm interested. So I'm a get up and go getter, as you can probably figure. So I got up and I went to that 5-hour workshop, and I was like, this is great. I want this technique. Yeah. And I'm already still studying with Ted. And so I looked at Summer and Andrew, who own the school. I says, can I, what is it called? Audit? Not audit, but what do you call it when you help them out? It's an official word.
I think it is
trainee,
volunteer, or I think it is. Is it audit? I don't know.
So I pretty much asked them, can I help y'all out around here? And he looked at me and says, yeah.
No doubt.
I was like, oh, great, because I was excited. And so the only class that was available to me that I could take was Sunday mornings. I was like, I'm doing a lot of filming on the weekends. This is going to be tough, but I went with it, right? And so he gave me a key, and so I'd come in Sunday morning before everyone else, sweep the floor, set out the chairs, and make the coffee. Right. Maybe take out the garbage. And I did that for level 1. Then I looked at him. That was 10 weeks, and then I says, okay. Can I do it for level 2? He says, sure. So level 2, I did the same thing and for 10 weeks. But then also in level 2, they didn't have an even number in their Tuesday night class. And so they needed me. So I took Meisner Tuesday night, Saranto's Wednesday, and Meisner Sunday. So I was in those 3 classes. Right. And then that went on for level 2, level 3, and level 4. And then level 5, it was just one night, one Sunday afternoon. So I did all of that. And then I was taking a 4th class for about 3 weeks. I was like, this is too much. But this is who I am, along with the tapes and studying and other stuff and acting in the films over the years, blah, blah, blah. I had my hands full, but I was running blind. But I knew that in the end, something would come up out of all of this. No doubt.
And also, you're teaching right now as well at Second City, right? Teaching like a film class, acting on film?
Acting on camera. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I back in 2004, when I first started studying with Ted, by May, I did this audition for Robert Townsend. They had this cattle call for this cable station that he was creating or something. And it was like 100 people in line. I was out there for 11 hours before I got into that room.
Goodness.
And we were laughing and talking and meeting people. And I remember meeting this young black kid from Second City. He said he had studied at Second City. And I'm talking all of this stuff. We're having fun. He says, show me some of that stuff that you're talking about. So I took him to a distant part of the warehouse, and I gave him the intending dream scene, the opposites, and a secret, and said, now go. And so in the end, what happened was he had demonstrated commitment. I was like, okay, you're ready. And so they took maybe 25 people at a time in the rooms to get people through to see Robert and whoever was filming, and the number of people that was in the room. It was tons of people in the room.
Yeah.
And so when he came out, his sister came out with him, and she said to me, this was back in 2004. I don't know what you told him, but I've never seen him act that good in my life.
All right, no doubt.
I was like, wow,
yeah,
I can teach this.
Oh, no question.
So over the years, I just kind of worked with people, and then I started doing workshops, maybe once a quarter, where I invite people over for a 3-hour workshop.
Yeah,
they work on their monologue, and I have them do it, then have them give them a suggestion. Some people come in ready, like, well, there's nothing I can do for you. Thank you. Next.
That's
but then I'll make a suggestion and let them try it that way. Opposites intending dream scenes. And so I've been doing that. And then I got featured on WGN on People to People with Michael Matera. And Vince Singleton, another filmmaker that I worked with, who teaches over at Columbia and the Harold Ramis Film School and at Second City and somewhere else. He's doing too much, and making film. So he saw that and he says, Harold, how would you like to teach at Second City? I was like, hell yeah, set it up.
Set it up. Let's do it. Now pay me. Give me the motherfucking check.
What's up? Let's do it. And so I met with the guy directly over him at the Starbucks.
Right.
And we sat there and we talked, and
the Starbucks right downstairs.
Right downstairs,
yeah.
And I had the job.
That's what's up, man.
And so he says, I want you to learn the Second City way first. This was April of 2018. So I want you to take a couple classes, to take the improv classes.
Yeah.
And so I looked them up, and I was like going to take improv for actors 1 and improv for actors 2. I was like, double the money. I'm go-getter. I want to get as much in as possible in one term. But they didn't have the 1 and 2, so I ended up taking the 1. So as soon as I signed up for that class, I get an email from him. He says, you still want to teach at Second City, right? I was like, yeah. He says, okay, class starts in a couple days, Wednesday.
Nice,
go.
Nice.
I was like, oh my God. So I felt like I got thrown into the fire.
Right.
And so I went in there I was probably more nervous than the students.
Yeah.
And so I went in, and the first term went great. Second term went great. And so term after term after term. And I just finished up a term here a couple days ago. And the next term, second term, 2020 starts in Wednesday, 3 days from now.
That's cool, man. That's sometimes the best thing, man, being thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
Just jumping in.
And the students are very happy because I'm giving them real life on-set experiences. I have them, first thing we do is we work on their monologue that they can tape and have and share with people.
Yeah.
Then we do a 2-person scene so they can have that experience. I may have somebody hold some equipment or something, but I have a TA in class that shoots and edits. So all I have to do is teach and direct. And then we shoot a 12-page short. And
that's cool, man.
We do all that in 8 weeks.
They have nice little reel.
Yeah, and screen it, and we have fun. And people do learn because I like to make sure that I teach them nose to the camera and find some business that leads back to the camera. All of the acting stuff, everybody has to have some experience of taking some acting before they come into the class.
Experience.
So, yeah.
You need experience.
So I have people that have graduated from film school, graduated with their BAs from college in acting and blah, blah, and come in. And some people that have taken a acting class. And so I have to, take people where they're at and make it work.
Right.
Make it fit. Yeah.